Hello, this is Darrell Castle with today's podcast. Today is Monday, March 24th, 2014. And in today's podcast, we will discuss war and the fact that many people and organizations advocate for it and seem to believe that committing our men and women to foreign conflicts to achieve world domination for the United States is a legitimate and even admirable thing to do. These advocates of war are not agitators or protesters. They do not hold mass rallies. They don't occupy anything. On the contrary, they usually hold government positions while rotating back and forth from think tanks and giant corporations. Sometimes they are members and especially leaders of organizations such as the Project for a New American Century and Foreign Policy Initiative. They also like to advocate for expanding U.S. treaty obligations by expanding NATO to countries like Georgia and Ukraine, thus making any incursion a war with the United States. NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, formed at the end of World War II as a pledge of mutual assistance to come to each other's aid in the event either was attacked. It was a way to contain the expanding and imperialistic Soviet Union. Of the 28 NATO countries today, 2, that is the United States and Canada, are in North America. 25 are located in Europe, and 1, Turkey, is in Eurasia. If any of those countries is attacked, it means war with the United States. The United States watched these countries go into the Soviet bloc, many of them at the end of World War II, but now they find themselves in NATO and ready to have the United States go to war on their behalf if they are attacked. Some people continually push for the expansion into other countries such as Georgia and Ukraine. The United States also has treaty obligations with Japan in case Japan goes to war with China over a bunch of rocks out in the East China Sea, and also a treaty with the Philippines to defend it in case of war over fishing rights or islands or some other such thing. At the same time, the American people seem tired of war, as evidenced by the popular sentiment against war in Syria. The U.S. is continually expanding its treaty obligations and its commitments to take itself to war, injecting itself into every dispute that comes along, such as Syria, Iraq, and Ukraine. The American people are weary of it. They're tired of it, and they're saying, we don't want it anymore. The U.S. government seems intent on committing the American people to fight wars they are not willing to fight. That brings me to the writings of Etienne de la Boétie, a French political philosopher born in 1530, written 500 years ago approximately, but still very relevant today. La Boétie was interested in the question of why so many people are willing to voluntarily serve tyrants and fools. From his writing entitled The Politics of Obedience, the Discourse of Voluntary Servitude. Bear with me for a few minutes as I read some of his work. Quote, "But, oh, good Lord, what strange phenomenon is this? What name shall we give it? What is the nature of this misfortune? What vice is it, or rather what degradation, to see an endless multitude of people, not merely obeying, but driven to servility, not ruled, but tyrannized over? These wretches have no wealth, no kin, no wife, no children, not even life itself that they can call their own. They suffer plundering, wantonness, cruelty, not from an army, not from a barbarian horde, on account of whom they must shed their blood and sacrifice their lives, but from a single man, not from a Hercules nor a Samson, but from a single little man. Too frequently, this same little man is the most cowardly and effeminate in the nation, a stranger to the powder of battle and hesitant on the sands of the tournament, not only without energy to direct men by force, but with hardly enough virility to bed with a common woman. Shall we call subjection to such a leader cowardice? Shall we say that those who serve him are cowards and faint-hearted if 2, if 3, if 4 do not defend themselves from the one, we might call that circumstance surprising, but nevertheless conceivable. In such a case, one might be justified in suspecting a lack of courage. But if 100, if 1,000 endure the caprice of a single man, should we not rather say that they lack not the courage, but the desire to rise against him, and that such an attitude indicates indifference rather than cowardice? When not 100, not 1,000, but 100 provinces, 1,000 cities, 1,000,000 men refuse to assail a single man from whom the kindest treatment received is the infliction of serfdom and slavery, what shall we call that? Is it cowardice? Of course there is in every vice inevitably some limit beyond which one cannot go. 2, possibly 10, may fear one, but when 1,000, 1,000,000, 1,000 cities fail to protect themselves against the domination of one man, this cannot be called cowardly, for cowardice does not sink to such a depth, any more than valor can be termed the effort of one individual to scale a fortress, attack an army, or conquer a kingdom. What monstrous vice, then, is this, which does not even deserve to be called cowardice? A vice for which no term can be found vile enough, which nature herself disavows and our tongues refuse to name. End quote. Well, folks, that is the words of Mr. Boite, written some 500 years ago, but still relevant today in regard to why we follow tyrants down the road to war. That's the way I see it anyway. Thanks for listening, folks. Until next time, this is Daryl.